are reports, I must stress they are unconfirmed at the moment, but there are reports that 2 boys have now emerged from the cave. The reports are that the boys, after emerging the cave, remain there at the mouth of the cave and are currently being treated by doctors at the scene. They haven't yet been taken to hospital.
Hello, I'm Paul Barry. Welcome to mediawatch. And last night's news of the miracle in Thailand had the world and the media on the edge of their seats. Not surprisingly, all the Australian TV networks have been in Chiang Rai province for days, working around the clock to cover the dramatic rescue.
Liam, great to see you there. What good news? 4 of those boys out.
Absolutely fantastic news. The news I think by now the whole world has been waiting for.
There is still some way to go, but so far the media have done a great job, with Fairfax managing to get the news on its front page for once.
Miracle at Tham Luang.
Boys rescued.
Despite that news not breaking till 9 p.m. The News Corp papers, of course, had it too, but in the recent past, early print deadlines have seen the Fairfax metros miss big breaking stories, like the 2015 Charlie Hebdo terror attack. As we pointed out at the time, the Telegraph and Herald Sun both had dramatic front pages next day, while the Age and Sydney Morning Herald completely missed out. So, great to see them pulling out the stops this time. But alas, no prizes to the same papers for last week's bungled coverage of changes to the GST, where the Age and Herald's front page headlines were simply wrong.
Victoria the loser in $7 billion GST shake-up.
New South Wales loses in $7 billion overhaul of GST.
In fact, as Nine's Chris Ullman reported, under the Treasurer's GST revamp, every state will be a winner.
Over a decade, the Commonwealth will top up the GST funding pool by $9 billion. That and new rules will leave every state better off.
Now, as confusing as the GST formula is, you know that both those stories can't be right. And sure enough, the next day came this embarrassing page 2 correction in the Age and the Sydney Morning Herald.
The headline of a report on page 1 of yesterday's Herald said New South Wales would lose in changes to the GST. This was incorrect.
As the correction went on to state, far from being a loser, Victoria will receive $425 million more in GST, and New South Wales will receive a total of $351 million more. And the humble pie did not stop there. Both ran editorials which conceded,
Technically, Mr Morrison is right to say that no state will be worse off.
And soon the Treasurer was sharing his delight at the correction before adding this dig.
I note that the Daily Telegraph got it right. Just saying.
But they weren't the only mistakes made by the Age and Herald. They also bungled the overall amount of GST revenue going to the states, originally saying it was $126 billion, which was corrected to $67 billion. Whoops. So, how did these mistakes happen? Fairfax did not want to explain. But it's safe to say the subs wear some of the blame, as former Age editor Mike Smith told ABC News Breakfast.
In fairness to the reporters yesterday, those headlines yesterday went a bit further than the text. So
right.
they can blame the subs.
Yeah, when all else fails, blame the subs. But now to more cheating and lies from NW magazine.
Busted in Cannes!
Twice this year we've outed the mag for faking pictures of Brad Pitt and Jennifer Aniston so they can claim they're back together again.
Dinner dates, house hunting and a ring.
But it is, of course, a lie, manufactured with decade-old photos of the pair, which are flipped and zipped to forge a fabricated reunion.
Yes, we can.
Well, now we can reveal how they make up other stories too, whether it be household names taking trips to rehab, or stars having psychotic breakdowns, or the ever-popular stars without makeup and their skin eruptions. So, how does it work? Well, these boring photos of clear-skinned Katie Holmes weren't going to sell magazines, so NW gave her some pimples. For a stars in rehab tale, NW took a slim-looking Lily Allen and photoshopped shadow around her ribs to make the singer starving and struggling. While for this recent story of Angelina Jolie heading for the psych ward, the mag's photographic evidence was 2 years old, and not evidence at all. Jolie was actually at a refugee camp in Athens, attempting to stop children being crushed by a crowd. Little wonder she was stressed. But NW cut out the kids and darkened her cheekbones to give her a haunted look, so she was frail and on the edge. So, are these isolated examples? Not according to several senior staff at NW, now no longer with the company, who have spilled the beans to MediaWatch. A former art staffer, for example, told us,
"We would make women fatter or skinnier based on the story that we were selling."
While a former sub at NW revealed,
"In body stories, it would be making shadows darker to bring out the bones. If it's a stars without makeup story, redness would be brought out or colour would be taken out to make them look more pale. So in an Angelina Jolie story, they would darken her eyes, ribs and cheekbones."
And, says the same source, when NW wasn't lying with Photoshop, it was busy writing works of fiction.
"When I started, these things were based around an element of truth, but gradually it just became more making things up. It got to the point writers were making up quotes and sending it off to the agency to approve."
The agency in question is an LA-based news and photo firm called Coleman Rayner, which caused a recent royal scandal by staging pap shots with Meghan Markle's father in the run-up to that wedding. So, how did it help? Yet another former staffer told MediaWatch,
"We would email them and say, can we get away with saying this? The general idea is that if we got it in writing, it lessens the legal responsibility. You can say, no, the source said that's how that was."
And we have some of those emails. One of which relates to this 2016 story about Liam Hemsworth and Miley Cyrus on honeymoon, where, having created the quotes, NW asked Coleman Rayner to launder them, with NW's news editor asking,
"Wondering if you had a Miley Liam source you could reach out to approve some quotes we've worked up for them, based on that ring pic and them heading off on a road trip together?"
With the magazine suggesting quotes like,
"It wouldn't surprise anyone if they'd gone ahead and secretly tied the knot," an insider reveals.
Except that there was no insider, just a writer in Sydney making it up. And look, there it is, in the copy, word for word. Magic, eh? So, did editor Mark Brandon know what the naughty writers were up to? Staff say yes, telling MediaWatch,
"We would have stories ready to go, and suddenly we would see the cover for the week that had all of these claims that weren't included in the story. The editor would come up with cover lines he thought would sell the mag. Suddenly, all the things that weren't there before had to be woven into the stories. He basically just made up stories for the cover instead of writers working on it."
Hard to believe. But 2 years ago, editor Brandon admitted he had a pretty relaxed approach to the truth in his mag, telling MediaWeek,
"They asked what's your strike rate of getting things right and what's your strike rate of getting things wrong. I said it's kind of the same as real life when people are talking about their friends. Sometimes it is right and sometimes it turns out not to be right."
Except NW is put together by professional journalists and sold at $5.20 a pop to some 52,000 people, so it's hardly two neighbours gossiping over the fence. One question raised by all these lies and fakery is why hasn't the mag been hit with multi-million-dollar defamation suits like Women's Day? It seems because they mostly target foreign celebrities who never see what's being said about them. As another former sub told us,
"We wouldn't go hard on Aussie celebs because they would read the mag."
But the bigger question is how the hell do they get away with it? Because surely they're defrauding readers too. Some legal experts believe their lying and cheating might be covered by the Competition and Consumer Act, even though news organisations are broadly exempt. But no one has yet tried to take them on. And in the meantime, the crime is catching on. Here's last week's edition of Woman's Day, also owned by Bauer Media.
Brad and Jen's romantic Parisian reunion.
The former couple take time away from LA to reconnect in the city of love.
Can you believe it? Answer, no, of course not. The photo of Brad was taken in New York when his Netflix movie premiered in May last year. And Jen was snapped this April alone outside her favourite Parisian restaurant, Nello, also in New York. We sent a list of questions to NW and Bauer Media. Surprise, surprise, they declined to comment. But surely it is time they were stopped. But now to a shocking case of wrongful conviction. In April last year, a 2-month-old boy died at his home in the New South Wales Riverina.
Paramedics were called there at 5 a.m. to reports of an injured or extremely unwell child. The infant died in Wagga Base Hospital soon after.
The death of baby Archer rapidly became national news after reports that his father, Andrew Crichton, had been arrested at the scene.
A 32-year-old man is being questioned by homicide detectives.
And several media outlets actually suggested Crichton had killed his son, taking their lead from reports in Wagga's local paper, the Daily Advertiser.
Wagga baby dead, man in custody. A crime scene has been established in Henwood Avenue and a 32-year-old man has been taken into custody.
Andrew Crichton, Archer's 32-year-old father, was taken into custody screaming, "I'm sorry," outside the family's home in Coringal, about 5 a.m. on Monday.
It's understood the infant sustained head injuries, according to the Daily Advertiser.
So, was the father found guilty of any crime? Well, no. Crichton was released hours after his arrest, and 2 weeks ago a coronial inquest found that Archer died from asphyxiation after being left lying face down on a lounge in what was described as a tragic incident, and there were no head injuries. So how did the Advertiser get it so wrong? Well, 6 weeks ago, New South Wales Police revealed that one of its officers had tipped off the paper by SMS on the morning of the death.
The SMS suggested that Archer had been murdered and that a person of interest was in custody. Having received that SMS and in light of surrounding circumstances, the Daily Advertiser concluded that Mr. Crichton may have been implicated in the tragic death of his son.
Now, not only was this police text unauthorised, it also turned out to be wrong. Although, as the inquest revealed, a distraught Mr. Crichton had indeed told police, "I've killed our baby." And 6 weeks ago, New South Wales Police finally admitted
the SMS was sent before the facts were known and, as a result, was not accurate. It should never have been sent. The New South Wales Police Force do not make any suggestion that Mr. Crichton was in any way involved in the death of his son, and sincerely apologises to Mr. Crichton for any harm, distress and hurt which have been caused to Mr. Crichton and his family.
Now that's a pretty good apology, even if it may be a year too late. But Archer's mother, Millie Butler, is still angry.
These stories published in the media were completely false, and only written in the manner that they were due to a police officer leaking untrue news tips to a newspaper.
Life has been so hard for Archer's parents in the last year that they were forced to leave town. And as one family member told mediawatch,
"The only way I can sum it up is you couldn't imagine that losing a baby could be made any worse, but the actions of the police officer and the Daily Advertiser have made it insufferable."
And what still angers the family is that even after the inquest branded the death a tragic incident, the Daily Advertiser, whose original story reported that the infant succumbed to injuries and died soon after, has not corrected the record or apologised. We asked the Advertiser why not, but it declined to comment. That, in my view, is shameful, and it needs to set the record straight now. Finally, to Tassie, and an embarrassing misfire from Southern Cross News.
Well, for years you've known us as Southern Cross News, but tonight we have some exciting news for you. As of July 1, you'll be tuning into 7 News Tasmania when you join us at 6.
Exciting stuff. So, what does it mean for viewers?
What it means is we're actually working closer with our 7 affiliates. We have the exact same team that'll be fronting our news 7 days a week.
The network also tweeted about the major announcement. So, when July 1 rolled round, how did the news look?
This is Southern Cross News with Rick Fontaine.
Hang on, wasn't that supposed to be 7 News? Let's check out Monday night.
This is Southern Cross News with Joe Palmer.
Yep, same on Tuesday too.
Good evening everyone and welcome to Southern Cross News.
In fact, all week viewers were waiting for the snazzy new look that never came. And viewers were asking why, but getting no answers.
I thought Southern Cross News was changing to 7 News Tasmania on the 1st of July. What happened? Lack of communication for your viewers.
So, what did happen? Well, it seems Southern Cross jumped the gun, and 7's concerned about the news carrying the 7 brand, but not being under their editorial control. And Grant Blackley, Southern Cross Austereo CEO, confirmed that to mediawatch, telling us
7 felt they shouldn't have their name on it if they didn't control the output, and we're respectful of that. If we did anything right or wrong, they would be associated with it. So we're coming up with a new independent brand.
Blackley says it will all be resolved in the next few days and the rollout as 7 Tasmania will then go ahead. So stand by for a new announcement about the new news coming soon. And there's more on these stories on our Facebook page or our website where you can get a transcript and download the programme. You can also catch up with us on iView and contact me or mediawatch on Twitter. And don't forget, Media Bites on Twitter, Facebook and iView every Thursday. But for now, until next week, that's it from us. Goodbye.